All right, welcome back. Let's roll out to Dallas, Texas. I want to bring in Sara Gonzales. She's a mom. She's a host of a show on BlazeTV. She's on the front lines fighting against this whole drag queen deal we got going on in schools and libraries. She's, on the front lines fighting against this whole transgender movement. And so I wanted to get, we just talked to Delano Squires, a dad. I wanted to get a mom's opinion, and I wanted to get an opinion of someone who has every right to feel not intimidated, but just concerned about her safety because she has publicly been on the front lines of this issue. And so, Sara, I just wanted to know how you're feeling today and how you were feeling yesterday, and just wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing and just wanted to check in on you and how you're doing.
I appreciate that, Jason. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm going to try to get through this interview without crying because it's been a very emotional roller coaster for me the last, 24, 48 hours. It's frustrating to see this happen because, you have babies who were just slaughtered in their school for nothing, for no reason. And I have been trying to warn people for a very long time that this was coming. You have these people who are mentally ill, and you have the medical community who is emboldening them, enabling them, making this worse for them by coddling their mental illness. And as they get increasingly violent, we see no consequences. You see Alex Stein over the weekend, who just visited San Francisco and had multiple people assault him, had hot coffee thrown on him. We saw it happening in New Zealand as well. We see Billboard Chris, who frequently gets assaulted by the LGBT community. These are not people who just want tolerance. These are not people who just want to be accepted. These are people who want to change the country, and they want to change you and make sure that you obey them. And if you don't, they want you to suffer severe consequences. We have seen it creeping up on us time and time again. And so I've tried to warn people, if you do not speak up, if we do not change this culture war, these things are going to happen. And it kills me inside that these parents are having to bury their babies because of this trans nonsense has gone too far. I'm very frustrated today, Jason, as you can tell.
So I was just talking with Delano, and I was telling him, hey, look, I'm not anti-trans. I don't think Matt Walsh is anti-trans. I don't think Sara Gonzales is anti-trans. I think we are pro mental health care for people who need it. And so it's not about being anti anything. It's like, hey, let's give people the help that they need, and let's not tell people who are in mental crisis, hey, you're a victim, and that group of Christian believers over there are trying to eradicate you from the planet. That's just not true.
Exactly. And this is the only delusion. This is the only disorder, mental disorder, right? If someone were anorexic, if you had a young girl who was anorexic and she was rail thin, you wouldn't tell her, you're right, you're fat. Starve yourself more. I mean, this is the only delusion that we as a society have decided to enable rather than treat it for what it is, which is obvious mental illness. And I would argue, Jason, that people like you and people like me and people like Matt Walsh actually are more compassionate and care more about these people than the medical community, who is their only care is about money because they're profiting off of these people. They're making them lifelong patients, right? I care enough about these people to say, look, you can take whatever hormones you want, which are going to make you more prone to rage, more mentally ill, perhaps other consequences that come from that because you are a guinea pig at this point. You can chop off your body parts that you will never get back. You can do all of these things, but after you have done all of these things, all the studies show that you are still more prone to being depressed, to more mental illness, and to be pushed into suicide. I care about that. I want to stop these people from going into this lifestyle where they put themselves more prone to not only killing themselves, but doing irreversible damage to their bodies. So it's frustrating to hear people say, I'm anti-trans, when I feel like there's only a handful of us who are looking out for the rest of them.
Sara, I got to ask you a very real question. yesterday, does it scare you being on the front lines of this conversation and attending events and putting yourself in harm's way?
Yes. So we actually had an event yesterday that I had planned to go to. It was an all-ages drag show, and it was yesterday evening in Fort Worth. I did go because it was what I had planned to do, and I was very concerned for my safety. I was happy that there was a strong police presence, but I was on a list. They did have pictures of me, and I was escorted out. But it does concern me. But Jason, it goes so much further than that, because I'm very concerned for my safety. However, I don't have anyone else to do this in my place, because society, again, conservatives do this too. They're so guilty of sitting on the couch and letting other people fight in this battle, fight this spiritual warfare, fight this culture war, and they cheer us on while we do it. But I need help, Jason. I need help, which is why I formed my organization, Defend Our Kids Texas, which we're trying to, we're trying to bring more people into this culture war, because they know me. They know who I am, and my safety has been threatened multiple times, including last night. I get death threats on the regular. But I know that there's no one else who is going into this battle with me. And so I would just urge everyone, we have got to stand up and fight back. We need citizens, average citizens, everyday citizens, to go in and start exposing these things, to go in and say, you can't do this to kids. Hell, you shouldn't be doing this to adults. I mean, we need more people speaking out against this, because it can't just be me anymore.
I try to tell people all the time that, look, you can't sit on the sidelines as an adult, particularly if you have kids, because this is the world you're leaving your kids. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's say you're 55 years old and you're like, well, I'll be dead before the real craziness starts. Well, first of all, the real craziness has started, but also, what world are we going to leave these young people following in behind us? I don't even have kids, but I don't want to be responsible for leaving this world behind to young people. It just seems selfish and unfair. Sarah, there were people that died for my freedom 160 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they knew they were dying for my freedom. Go read the lyrics to the Battle Hymn of the Republic. They talk about dying so that others may live free. I just can't be that kind of selfish. I can't enjoy the life I'm having knowing people died for me to have it, and not make some sort of sacrifice or some sort of effort so that the kids following in behind me get to experience what I did.
I could not agree more, and it's a conversation that I often find myself in, because as I am urging, members of the community to stand up and speak out, I often hear excuses like, well, I have kids, well, I have to go to soccer practice, and I have to say back to them, I have kids too, which is why I'm fighting back so hard, because I will not sit back and stand idly by while the culture war shifts to the left, and they take this culture and they turn society into the decaying rot that it is. And I will not stand back and not be able to look my children in the face and tell them, I fought as hard as I could to take this society back and make it a better place for them to live in and for them to raise their babies in. I cannot in good conscience, stand back and not be able to say that to them. And so that, Jason, is why I am fighting so hard every day. That's why I'm taking the time. I don't want to go to a drag show on the weekends instead of spending time with my kids. I love being with my family, but I have to take the time to do it because I love my kids so much. And that's what I think people really need to understand, is that if you do love your kids, if you do want them to have a better world, I mean, what parent doesn't want their children to have a better life than they did? That's the parental, everyone's parental view should be, I want my kids, even if you had a good life, I always want my kids to have a better life than I did growing up. Well, you can't do that by sitting back and standing idly by. You have to get involved if you have a conscience enough to leave your kids a better place.
Do you think, and final question, I'll let you go on this, do you think that these people understand that the way the Alphabet Mafia, as I call them, is moving the culture, that the culture is now advantaging the gay, bisexual, transgender person. Corporate America is installing them in leadership positions everywhere. And so, and particularly if you're just a straight, heterosexual, Christian person, you're last on the totem pole, and particularly you throw white on top of that, you're really last on the totem pole in terms of corporate promotion. And so, again, if we don't stand up and fight, there's going to be no real place for the straight, heterosexual, Christian male or woman. They're all being baited into adopting these extra sexual identities so they can be cool kids and so they can get the high position jobs, so they can be in that preferred status. You don't need as high SAT score. You don't need this. You don't need that. Do people understand that that's what's being done?
I don't think that it was immediately understood. I don't think that they understood it at first, but I think as time has gone on and they have seen, people like Rachel Levine be elevated to Assistant Secretary of the Department of Health when this is a person who is very mentally unwell. When they see all of these leadership roles being taken by someone who checks off identity boxes, I think that it has become more clear to the average American. However, the problem now is that people are too scared to be called the names, right? They're too scared to be called transphobic. They're too scared to be, but what if I get called a bigot? Guess what? I got news for you. They're going to call you all of those things anyway. So you might as well speak out while you still can. That's the thing, Jason. You and I both know that all of those names that society is scared of being called, they're still planning on calling you that, whether you are or not. So you might as well fight as hard as you can to take the culture back before it is taken from you forever.
Like what you saw? Hit that like button, subscribe, and check out the full episode by clicking the link below.